Welcome to In Her Voice. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am passionate about helping women live authentically by listening to their inner voice. Get ready to be inspired by women of all walks of life that have set aside their should-bes and not good enoughs and are standing in their true voice, the voice of wisdom that each and every one of us has inside. Hello. This is Kelly Covert, and I am so excited that you press play and that you're hanging out with me today for the next 45 minutes or so. You are going to love this interview that I have with Andrea Owen. You know what we're talking about? We're talking about how to stop feeling like shit. How about that? I mean, isn't that what we all want? Don't we all just want to feel good? And she's just so down to earth, and her energy, it's just vital. You're going to just adore her. Let me tell you a little bit about Andrea. Andrea Owen is an author, mentor, and certified life coach who helps high-achieving women let go of perfectionism, control, and isolation and choose courage and confidence instead. She has helped thousands of women manage their inner critic to create loving connections and live their most kick-ass life. She is the proud author of 52 Ways to Live a Kick-Ass Life, BS-Free Wisdom to Ignite Your Inner Badass and Live the Life You Deserve. And her second book, How to Stop Feeling Like Shit, 14 Habits That Are Holding You Back from Happiness, is coming out January 2nd in less than a month. When she's not juggling her full coaching practice or hosting retreats, Andrea is busy competing in triathlons, chasing her 10-year-old son and 8-year-old daughter, or making out with her husband, Jason. She is also a retired roller derby player, having skated under the name Veronica Vane. Oh yeah. You can learn more about Andrea at yourkickasslife.com. And I know that once you listen to this interview, you are totally going to want to connect with her on Instagram and listen to her podcast and read her book. Yeah, you're just going to love it. Going to love it. That was kind of funny, the way that I said that. Anyway, you guys, before we hop into the interview, I want to remind you that the doors to the inner circle are open. I am registering right now. And if you are ready to really join a group of women who get it, to have coaching support with me, your inner voice coach, so you can really start living out the vision that you've been given. Because listen, I know you have a vision. I know you're excited about something. I know that you're ready to break through. And sometimes you feel stuck. And you know what? That's okay. We all feel stuck. But one of the most important things you can do is get the support that you need. And that's exactly what the inner circle is all about. So if you want to learn more about the inner circle and join, you can click on over to kellycovert.com/inner circle, all one word, and learn more about that. And you can sign up right there. It's a monthly subscription. And trust me, it is well worth the value. You get 2 coaching calls a month. You get the group. You get love notes from me every single week. It's fantastic. So head on over to kellycovert.com/inner circle so you can get going today. Now, let's get on with our interview with Andrea. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Andrea Owen, I'm so excited to welcome you to In Her Voice today. How are you?
I'm great, Kelly. I'm so excited to be here.
Fantastic. And I love the title of your new book, How to Stop Feeling Like Shit. Mm-hmm. I mean, because really, that's how we all want to feel, right?
I want to feel better. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And we're going to talk a lot about that. But I wanted to ask, I think, the most important question of the day. And that is, why did you retire from roller derby?
Oh my gosh. No one has ever asked me that question. I'm so glad that you did. Well, it's a great story, but I wish it was a little bit better. So I got hurt, and I wish I could say it was this badass roller derby accident collision that I had, but it wasn't. I slipped on some ice and completely tore the labrum in my right shoulder.
Oh,
And if that
wow.
wasn't bad enough, and then I got frozen shoulder. So I was out for months and months and months. And then and then I tried to go back and my shoulder wasn't better and we ended up moving. And at that point I was about to turn 40 and I just felt like derby hurts, like it is no joke.
It's a rough sport.
It is a rough sport. And I felt like, I hate to say this, but I think that my body is just wants something less impactful.
Mm-hmm.
So I still love the sport. We still go to bouts every once in a while here where we live in North Carolina. But yeah, I would love to do a rec league because roller derby, for people that don't know, it's a player fund. It's ran by the players. So it's a lot of work is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's just so interesting. And the reason that I wanted to ask you that is because I want to know what it felt like for you. Like, how did doing roller derby make you feel?
Like coming home. Like the women in derby, like I've never been in a group before that accepted you as you are. There are all different shapes and sizes, all different careers, all different walks of life and religions. And even, there's even the trans community plays derby and it doesn't matter. It really was a group of come as you are. And that's one of the many things I loved about it. And there's so many lessons that I learned in derby too. Like I'll just give you a quick, for instance.
Yeah.
So one of the rules in derby is that when you fall, you have a certain amount of time to get back up. And I believe, the rules are kind of leaving me now, but it's 2 or 3 seconds to get back up. And if you don't, then I don't know if you go to the penalty box or what actually happens, but there are so many rules in derby that could be related to life. And, it's like you're allowed to fall. You're allowed to totally eat shit. But there comes a time where, come on, feel what you feel. And then let's get back up and do this. And I love the sport. I love it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a perfect transition to digging into what we want to talk about today, because what I hear you saying is you have to allow yourself to feel the feelings. Mm-hmm. Can we talk about that?
Yes, please. Can we? Yes.
Yeah. So, what does that even mean?
That's such a great question. I asked myself the same thing forever and ever. Amen. And personally, in my experience, first and foremost, it means knowing that you've been hooked in some way, knowing that you've been triggered or that something hurts or is frustrating or, someone has failed to meet your expectations, all of these things that happen every day in our lives. And what we typically do, I don't know about you, Kelly, but what my norm was to either drink or some kind of numbing mechanism because I didn't want to feel the overwhelm of feelings. I didn't have time for them. They were a distraction. They were too painful. They were too overwhelming. And I think first and foremost, we need to know that we're in it, which seems like duh, but yes, you need to know so that you can actually move through them. And what it also looks like is reaching out for help when you need it. I know that some people would rather, if they're going to have a fall apart moment, they want to do it by themselves. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And just really allowing yourself, emoting looks different for different people. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. It's just a matter of also, I'll just throw this last thing in too, is trusting that you're going to be okay on the other end. I know that some people feel they have that core belief of if I open Pandora's box and start feeling my feelings, I might never stop crying. Or just that feeling of, again, being so overwhelmed by them. So I like to just, and please note everyone listening that I was the queen of numb your feelings, And I got sober in 2011. And that's really when I started the journey of that. And I'm here to say that we don't die from feeling our feelings, and they don't go away if we numb them out too. So be prepared for that.
And not only do we not die, but we probably will feel more alive than we've ever felt.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Put that on a t-shirt and sell it. nailed it. We do feel more alive. And it gathers evidence of knowing that this is okay. Emotions are our body's way of expelling and processing what needs to happen. I mean, you can look at it as simply as digestion. Your body knows how to digest something. When you are pregnant and it's time to have a baby, your body knows how to expel that baby. Same thing with emotions. Our bodies know what to do. This is why we cry, to expel it. This is why we get angry and need to do whatever we do to feel angry. And our bodies are the smartest parts of ourselves, but we try to think our way through it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, this podcast is all about listening to your inner voice. And I think that our inner voice speaks to us so often through our body.
Yes.
And we have to be aware of that. Like, we have to develop the awareness of knowing, okay, I need to cry right now. I mean, and I am very emotional. I cry at the drop of a hat. But I think because I'm like that, I don't feel sad all of the time.
Yep.
Right? Like, in that moment, I can feel that, or I can feel the emotion that I'm feeling it, and I feel it intensely and deeply, and then I'm done. And it's really, there's a lot of freedom there.
Absolutely.
So I want to go back to something that I heard you say. You said, I didn't have time for it. I didn't have time to feel those emotions. And so, the kind of woman who listens to in her voice is super smart, super high achiever, probably has some perfectionistic qualities, or is working on recovering from those. And they are busy. Like, they have a lot on their plate. And I think that feeling of not having time for something as simple as feeling emotions is really, really common. So how do we convince ourselves that we need to make time for that?
Well, I think the alternative, and I think for some people, these are hard lessons that they need to learn themselves rather than listen to me tell them this is going to happen. But because this happened to me, the alternative is that when we don't do that, for many people, this shows up in our life as anxiety, and I'm like raising my hand over here. For some, it could aid in depression. And I'm not saying that anxiety and depression, I do think that there are actual chemical imbalances and biological things that attribute to that. But not feeling your feelings, I think, definitely puts you on the fast track for that. And also insomnia is another one. And for some people, some people would have theories that this is what also triggers illness in us. And again, hard lessons to learn. And I'm sure some people are listening or raising their hand with insomnia or these other things. For some people, it makes us lash out and blame. And for me personally, now I'm at a place in my life where those are red flags for me. If any of those things are happening, and sometimes my anxiety just shows up like a house guest that I didn't know what was coming. And I'm like, where did you come from? And I just allow that to happen. It happened yesterday, actually, out of nowhere. I was at the grocery store. I'm like, well, this is interesting. And that's kind of a mantra I use now.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to resist and fight and figure it out, I'm like, that's interesting. And then it went away after a few hours. But definitely anytime I'm lashing out or feeling resentful or getting snappy with my husband or passive aggressive or sarcastic, there's something that is going on. And it's usually a conversation I need to have. And there's also feelings around it too. So I think it's really important also, as a side note, Kelly, just to know what your red flags are. Like, what happens in your life, whether it's some of the symptoms that I mentioned, that there might be something else to look at. Usually it's emotional.
Totally. Yeah, I get really reactive. Yeah, I feel like I don't have control over my reactions, and that's my red flag. And I think it comes back to that piece of awareness. So understanding that is going to come back and kick you in the ass if you don't take care of it.
Absolutely. Every time.
In one way or the other. Yeah. So you share on your website and in the foreword of your book about your rock bottom, like this moment of recognizing that something had to change.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you said was that you felt like your soul was dying. And I think that so many of us can relate to that. And it's like we can't quite put our finger on it, but we know that something is not right. How did you begin the process of pulling yourself out from that?
It was a slow one. And there were mistakes along the way, definitely. And, just to make a long story short, my rock bottom was two back-to-back relationships that they were not just toxic and abusive. They were so awful. And both of those relationships were times where I was not listening to my intuition. One of them I married. And they were both so bad. And so, again, like one right after the other, after the second one fell apart, I found myself pregnant and alone, and had made all these choices where I was living with my sister, had to move in with her and her family. It was an awful, awful, awful time for me. And I literally picked myself up off the floor. I wasn't in the bathroom. I know so many people have the bathroom in the fetal position on the floor. I was in my bedroom in the fetal position on the floor. And I decided, I got on my knees, and, I'm not a particularly religious person, but I do have the spiritual foundation. At that time, it was just starting to come back. And I said, I don't know. I looked up at the sky and I said, I don't know what's in store for me, but I know this isn't it. And whatever it is, I'm open to hearing what I need to do. And I started with gratitude. And so this was right around the time that the movie The Secret had come out, from the book. And, not to get on a law of attraction kick or anything, but one of the lessons in there, the tools, was a gratitude practice. And I had never done that before. I had always put all of my eggs in other people's baskets and relied on other people to make me happy. And so I thought, all right, I guess I'll just start here. And I also thought, there is nothing I have to be grateful for right now, because look at my life. And I did it. I wrote down 10 things I was grateful for. And I still have that piece of paper that I wrote those things down. And I also did small things like I made a list of who are the people in my life, because I had been betrayed and hurt by so much at that time. And it was just by, 2 people. So I made a list of all the people I could rely on, all the people who were there for me, who loved me. And I also started to take care of myself for the first time. For me, it was really also the first time I had been single since I was 15 years old. So it was like all these really small steps. I started to read self-help books, continuing to make decisions and participate in behaviors that really weren't good for me. But still, it was these small baby steps. And that's just what my path looked like. And that was 11 years ago. And it was these small steps. The heavens didn't open up. I had a couple of spiritual moments, standing on a cliff and those types of things, feeling peaceful, but it didn't all of a sudden flip upside down and positivity rain down on me. It was a slow process that continues to this day.
I love that. And thank you for sharing and being vulnerable and transparent in that, because I think oftentimes when we're listening to interviews on podcasts or people reading a book or whatever, we think, well, they've got it all together. They know what they're doing. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's such an important message for us all to understand is, we may be trying to look like we have it all together. And that trying is often what's keeping us from feeling the way we want to feel.
Yeah, it's the dog and pony show. That's what I call it. It's especially this world that we live on. So many of us have these online personas, right? Where we're trying to create something so we can be perceived a certain way by other people. And, I have lots to say about that if you wanted to go down that path. But yeah, I am always over here saying, none of us have it completely figured out. If someone's trying to sell you that, I think it's snake oil. And I'm a big fan of knowing that my purpose is my path. And I think that everyone's purpose is their path. I think we get so caught up in wanting to know what our thing is. Like, what is our purpose? Why am I here? And of course, we want to know that we matter. We want to know that our lives matter. But at the end of the day, sometimes it's not one particular thing. I don't know if motherhood is my purpose. I don't know if being a life coach is my purpose, but I know for sure that my purpose is to try to be the best person that I can be and just go along this path of betterment. That's it.
Yeah, I really love that idea, because that releases us from all of the trying, to have to
Yeah,
do
and the
things a
shoulds.
certain way. Yeah, exactly. And, I am a former chronic overachiever.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Welcome. We
actually,
saved you a seat in our club.
yeah, thank you. Woo! Recovering perfectionist right
Yeah.
here. And the year that I turned 40, I actually had a very deliberate and intentional year of underachieving. Like I would
Wow.
say that to
Mm-hmm.
people, like I'm underachieving this year. and, and they would look at me and they would be like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And I'm like, no, no, no. I'm not doing anything that I don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing anything for a reason of proving or for having to check a box that was never my own box to begin with,
Right.
or to look a certain way. Like everything that I did starting in that year was for me. And that's still how I live. Like now I don't call it underachieving because I don't think that that's what it is, but it's something that I think is really interesting as high achievers. How do we balance that out? How do we figure out the difference between being a high achiever and being a perfectionist, or being a high achiever and being a people pleaser? How do we figure that out?
Those are some hard lessons. And, I wrote several chapters of it in my book, for one.
Yeah.
But let me start with high achieving, because I think that they're kind of all their own animal. And high achievers, and I'm going to say we, because definitely it's a we tend to value ourselves through our achievements. So it's, if I can do all of these things, then I will be approved of, I will be loved, I will be accepted. We're doing it it's outwardly focused, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
I would really be nothing without them. And I think one of the first steps for people to try to heal from that, can I go in that direction?
Sure, that would be great. Yeah.
Is I do think it can be helpful for people to try to figure out where it came from. I don't think it's completely necessary, but it can be helpful for people to try to connect the dots. And I know for some people, it was pressure from childhood. For other people, it was they wanted to prove something for some other reason. Maybe they weren't pressured by their parents. Maybe it was for some other reason. My personal experience was not so much that. My parents were encouraging, but they were never, you need to get straight A's and be a star on the tennis team or anything. For me, it was more just a product of the environment and a product of our culture that as females, Courtney E. Martin wrote about this in her book, Perfect Girl, Starving Daughters. And I resonated so much with this. And she said it was the unintended backlash of the feminist movement that said, you can be anything. And we as little girls, I grew up, I think I'm your age, Kelly, like I grew up in the late 70s, 80s, and we ran with that. And we heard, we have to do everything. And it was definitely perfectionism and overachieving our sisters.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think, first things first is to take a look at your physical health. And are there any things, like I was mentioning a few minutes ago, do you have insomnia, irritable bowel syndrome, anything that you know? And I think overachievers know, they know. It's not like, oh, I'm an overachiever.
Yeah.
And I think that
we wear it as a badge of honor, really, until we
Absolutely.
figure out that, hey, wait a minute, actually, I'm doing myself harm.
Yeah. And I think that, like, to be totally transparent, I think overachievers have such a grip on it. They have gotten to where they are by achieving. And what I think the mentality is that, like you were saying, like, I'll be honest, I cringed a little when you said that you were underachieving, because we tend to swing the pendulum like completely the other way. It's black or white.
Right.
Either I'm totally overachieving or I'm just going to like say no to everything and underachieve. For most people, that's like just terror. Like, no, that's taking away your identity. I would never want anyone to think that that is what they have to do. So I think it's a matter of just taking inventory. Like, how is this negatively affecting your life? Are your personal relationships suffering? Is your physical health suffering? What is it actually costing you? Like, take a good look at that. And then it's about looking at where you can slow down and rest, because none of us are built to be, pedal to the metal all the time. None of us are meant to just do for a season. It's a lifetime. Like we're not Terminators. We're not robots. We're humans. And I do think that this particular one, I don't want to say, everybody needs to kind of crash and burn, but for most of us, that's what ends up happening. We get wake-up calls, whether it's a relationship wake-up call or a health wake-up call, or just this existential crisis of what do I need to do to change? And it is a matter of figuring out what is rest for you. What is the gray area? It doesn't need to be complete underachieving and saying no to everything and just, holding up and watching Netflix. What is the gray area? Even that is uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. And I love the emphasis on rest. I actually just did a solo episode not too long ago on how we need to protect our energy. And it's the same idea, like really understanding that if we wait to refill when we're below empty, it's going to take a lot longer.
It does.
So we need to develop a practice of understanding what we need and giving that to ourselves before we think we need it. And this is one of the habits. So you talk in your book about the 14 habits that most women actually are doing, maybe without even realizing it, maybe with thinking that they're even good habits, like go, 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 push, push, push all of the time.
Right.
And then you talk about how it takes courage to break those habits. Mm-hmm. And I love that you said you have to find what the courage looks like for you. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that?
Good question. I'm struggling to even remember what I meant by that. 61,000 words will do that to you.
Well, and what I think when I think of that, I think of that my courage to step away from doing is going to look different from someone else's. And that we all have to find the path that works for us. And I think that in this world of self-help, we're like, well, just give me the step and I'll do it.
Yeah.
Especially for people who are rule followers, perfectionists. Like, it's easy. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And then everything will be better. But I think the unknowingness of figuring out what that courage is for each of us can be a challenge.
Yes. And the theme of the book in all of the habits, the courage is some of the things is asking for help and turning to someone who you trust to help you, or even just to share where you're struggling. And also the very last chapter of the book is all about values, and values can be kind of unsexy to talk about in personal development, but it is foundational. If you don't know what your values are, we don't really have a map or a North Star. What's important about the way you live your life? What's important to you about how you show up? What does it take for you to be proud of the woman that you are at the end of the day when you have to have a hard conversation, or you have to, go out and play roller derby? What are these things? And not just be able to name them, but what do they actually look like in your everyday life? So that's sort of the theme of courage. But for instance, I'll give you for instance in the topic we were just talking about around overachieving. And one of the courageous things there is to embrace failure. And I think that the word failure has such a bad reputation, and we need a new word for it, because, I get asked that question in interviews and people will tell me tell us about a recent failure and how you dealt with it. And it always kind of stumps me, because I'm like, I don't even really so much use that word to describe things. I don't think that things go wrong. They go sideways. And I am almost to the point, almost not quite there. I know some people who get excited with failure, but I totally look at it like a treasure. Oh my gosh, what is there to be learned from this? We don't learn as much when things go great and things are smooth sailing. It's when things go awry and not as we wanted them to. That's where all of the learning is. And as a, self-help learning junkie myself,
right?
I have embraced failure. And again, I'm with you, chronic overachiever here too. And I graduated with honors in college and in order, to prove things. And it's a whole nother topic for another day. But yeah, failure failure still can sting. Like, no, I don't want to, especially publicly.
Yeah.
Especially publicly. But it's always learning, always learning.
Uh-huh. And it's not a reflection of your value or worth.
As a human. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's where we get caught up, right? Because we see those failures as, I'm not good enough. I suck. I'm not worthy. I can't believe that. I'm so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of seeing as, okay, that's good information. What do I need to shift or change to fix that? Or to fix is not even the right word, to just change it, because it didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to.
Exactly.
And I think tapping into that worthiness piece, that's a huge one for me. It's just understanding that our worthiness does not grow based on what we do or diminish based on what we don't do. Mm-hmm. It's there intact for us all of the time.
Yeah.
I'd love to go back to this idea of values and ask you, what does it take for you to be proud of you?
Oh, well, I think really circling back to what we were talking about in the beginning, and I think what is the theme of your show is listening to myself and trusting myself. I tend to lean on, I just left my best friend a message just a few days ago about this. And I said, you know what I do a lot that I'm going to work on not doing is seeking counsel and second guessing myself on decisions that I make. And it's as if I'm asking and these are people that I trust, my friends and colleagues, for permission. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, I'm thinking about doing this. And, for instance, I got an application, somebody wanted to work with me privately, and it didn't seem like a good fit. There were some red flags where I just didn't feel like I was the best fit for her. She needed something else. And then I second guessed myself, like, well, and at that point I would probably turn to my colleagues and say, like, what do you think about this? And I'm like, no, my gut is telling me that this is a no. And I need to have a hard conversation and tell this person kindly and compassionately. And that's one of the things right now that's coming up, I think, the most for me is just trusting myself. I do have all the answers. The answers are within me, and the clues are all around me. And that's something I've been meditating on over the last several days, is just trying to tap into that knowing. And that's important to me about how I live my life, is trusting myself and knowing that it will be okay, even when it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, and uncomfortable is the place where we grow.
Right.
So that's a good sign, mm-hmm. as much as uncomfortable as it is. So what are your daily practices like? How do you connect with your inner voice? How do you connect with your worthiness on a daily basis?
Well, I've spent many years doing the kind of like cognitive, like heady exercises. And I mean, you're probably not surprised. I come from an overachieving perfectionist controlling background. I want to think my way through it. And I think maybe many of your listeners are like that.
Sure.
The whole concept of intuition and somatic exercises felt really foreign to me. Even when I was in coaching school, I went to the Coaches Training Institute, and there's a whole module on what they call process coaching. And it's about processing your emotions and feeling it in your body. And I was like eye rolling the whole time. I'm like, I'm not ever going to do this. This isn't for me. And so, fast forward years and years and years. And I, like Dr. Phil would say, how's that working for you? And I think for me, it's, it works until it doesn't. And all the heady stuff worked until it stopped working, and I'm pretty good there. So to answer your question, I have really gotten into learning about my heritage and my lineage. And I have felt a pull towards a certain culture for a long time, and doing some research on my own, realized that is in my lineage. And I didn't know it was as prevalent as it was.
That's really cool.
I also have, and there's like some Native American in there. And I'm like, well, that's why I've never been able to cut my hair. Like, I just feel like it's been something it's been so important to me since I was a little girl, and having shorter haircuts makes me feel like I want to crawl out of my skin. And it's not it's not from a vanity standpoint. It really is this weird, unexplainable thing. So also I have a rosary that was given to me from my father, and it was his maternal grandmother's. And I've just had it with me, and it's gone with me in my sock drawer through all these moves over the years and years. So now I've been meditating with it and using it sort of as a talisman and feeling I personally, now here's where I get really woo-woo. I know in my bones that my lineage is within my body. And I am here to speak for the women who have come before me, who were not able to speak, who were persecuted for their beliefs, who even, I know for a fact that my paternal grandmother was given shock therapy treatment because she struggled with depression in the 1940s. And things like that were just atrocities to women. And that's what I've been meditating on and really asking my guides and angels and God, universe, whomever, that I am open and ready to hear and receive whatever it is that I am meant to do to heal myself and to help others heal as well and to be of service. And that's what I've been meditating on. And I'm really getting into moon cycles as well. So that's been helpful. And I'm still really kind of in the infancy stages of it, but it's exciting. I'm borderline obsessed with it all. So it's, my own personal evolution.
Yeah. Well, I love the woo. So you're in good company here. And I know most of our listeners do too. So no worries there. And I loved what you said about how you had to get out of your head. Yeah. That is a big, daily part of my practice. I have certain practices that I do intentionally, and the only purpose of them is to shut down the hot mess in my head. Yeah, I just got to get out of there because I'm a thinker. That's my go-to, and that's not always going to serve me in the way that I needed to. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So Andrea, this has been so good. I just want to keep talking and talking, but we both have things to do.
We've got to go think about things.
I know. Actually, I haven't had my morning time yet, so that's what I'll be doing after. But I would love for you to share with my audience how they can get your new book. Tell us a little bit about it and where they can connect with you online and all of that good stuff.
Oh, thank you so much. So it's available for pre-order before January 2nd, but the official publication date and when it will be in bookstores is January 2nd. And you can easily go to my website. It's yourkickasslife.com / and it's the acronym for how to stop feeling like shit. So it's / HTSFLS. And there's a bunch of book bonuses that I'm giving away, including a free book study class that I'm guiding. So I'm not just throwing people in a group and saying, have fun. I'm guiding people through it, answering questions, doing Q&A videos, and things like that. So I'd be happy to have anybody that orders the book join us.
Awesome. And then how can we connect on Instagram or all of that fun stuff?
Same handle. I'm mostly on Instagram at Your Kick-Ass Life. And please come over and say hi and tell me that you heard me over here. And I'm always connecting with people over there. And my Instagram stories, you'll see a lot of Instagram stories about my dog and her toys, and you'll get to know my dog's toys' names if you want those. She's becoming quite a star.
Well, we have similar Instagram stories because I feel like at least 80% of mine are of my dog also. Not my kids. They won't be in any of them.
My dog is more often on there than my kids.
Yeah, that's hysterical. Well, and I hope that you guys check out this book because I have skimmed it. I'm going to sit down and read the whole thing. I'm looking forward to that. But even in the quick perusal, I'm like, yes, this is so awesome.
Oh, good. Thank you.
And this podcast will be airing on December 12th. So you guys still can get in on those pre-order bonuses. So definitely go check that out. And I will put all of these links at the show notes page on kellycovert.com. Just hit the podcast tab.
So, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Andrea, I would like to finish with a last question that I ask all my guests. And that is, what is your inner voice asking of you in your life right now?
In my life, I definitely think it's what I just talked about slowing down and receiving guidance and information, and that the answers are all around me, and I just need to trust that they are, and also be open to receiving them.
Yeah, such good lessons for all of us. I thank you so much for being here today. And I just want to honor and acknowledge you. You have so much life in your energy. Like there's just this vital energy that I feel in you. And I'm so grateful that you have given some of that to us today, that you've poured that out into our hearts today. So thank you.
That's my pleasure. Thank you, Kelly.
And have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Boom. Right? I mean, wasn't there so much good stuff right in there? And you know what I loved about what Andrea had to say is that this is not about being better than, right? These habits that we talked about, the few habits that we talked about, and also the habits that she writes about in her book, these are habits that we're all doing, sometimes without realizing it. And like, that's okay. Like, we're normal. These are the normal things that we do to protect ourselves, to preserve ourselves. But when we start to recognize that they're also the things that are keeping us from feeling the way that we want to feel, and in fact, making us feel worse, that's when it becomes powerful. It's that awareness piece. That's why, for me, when I recognized that perfectionism and all of the doing was actually making me feel less than, it was making me feel like I wasn't enough. Not what I thought it would be making me feel. I think we think it's going to make us feel better. We think it's going to make us feel more worthy, but that's not the way it works. That's an illusion. That's our ego telling us that that's what we need. When in reality, if we tap into our inner voice and we're really paying attention, we can be secure in the knowing that we are enough right this minute, that we are worthy right now, and that it's okay to be a high achiever as long as that high achieving is coming from within and is aligned with our soul, with who we are. So, man, I just love that conversation. And I hope that you guys did too. And if you really had a great takeaway, or you thought, oh, that's fantastic, can you let us know? You can tag me at Kelly J. Covert, and you can tag Andrea at Your Kick-Ass Life. We're both on Instagram all the time. And let us know what you loved about this episode. I personally, I won't speak for Andrea, but I'm guessing she would too. I would really love it. I would love to hear from you, because when I hear from you, even if it's just a quick, hey, I love this episode, or yes, keep them coming, that just feeds my soul. It gives me that encouragement that I need to know that you're out there and that you're listening, and that in her voice matters to you. So I just want to thank you in advance for doing that, because it really means a lot to me, and you mean a lot to me. I'm so grateful for you guys. I'm so blessed to have this community of women around me that can hold me, and that I can serve, and that I can just be me with. Oh, what a relief. I can just be me. And you know what? You can just be you too, because you are worthy.